Welcome back. This is day 3 of sexual reproduction. Today's aim is, how does meiosis increase genetic variation? But before we get into that, you guys have got 2 do now questions. So go ahead and pause this video, answer those 2, and then press play when you're ready to review them. All right, number 1, meiosis and fertilization are important processes because they most immediately result in what? Okay, well, in order to answer this, you have to know what meiosis is and what fertilization is. So we know that meiosis is a process that produces gametes. All right, and fertilization is when those gametes combine. So sperm and egg combine together. And why are these processes important? Well, they're important because they result in genetic variation. Both of these processes are involved with sexual reproduction, which results in genetic variation between the offspring. All right, number 2, which cell process occurs only in organisms that reproduce sexually? The answer here is going to be C, meiosis. We know that meiosis produces gametes, which another word for gametes is sex cells. Those sex cells are only needed if you reproduce sexually. All right. Moving on to the first part of today. The first thing you guys are going to do is actually pause this video, and I want you to go watch the video that I have linked on your worksheet. As you guys watch that, you're going to be answering the questions that follow. Then you'll come back to me, press play, and we will review those answers together. All right, so go watch the Amoeba Sisters and come back when you are done. Welcome back. So number 1, how many chromosomes are present in human body cells? Hopefully by now you know that there are 46 chromosomes present in human body cells. You might also hear these called somatic cells because the word somatic means body. And we're going to describe those body cells as diploid or 2N, meaning they contain the full set of chromosomes. Right, number 2, how many chromosomes are present in gamete cells? Well, gamete cells is another word for, I'm writing over where my text is going to be, is another word for sex cells. And we know that sex cells contain half the total amount of the chromosomes, which means that in humans, they're going to have 23. We're going to describe those as haploid or N, which means they have a half set of chromosomes. So the word hap kind of looks like the word half. Okay, that helps you out because haploid cells have half the total amount of chromosomes. Number 3, what is fertilization? Fertilization is when the egg and sperm cell nuclei fuse together. So the second that the sperm meets the egg cell, that is when fertilization happens. The 2 nucleus or the nuclei in each of those cells is going to combine and form what we know as a zygote. And number 4, what are the 2 gametes in humans? How many chromosomes does each have? And I also want you to either draw or insert a picture below. So by now we know that the 2 gametes found in humans are sperm cells, which contain 23 chromosomes, and egg cells, which contain 23 chromosomes. I also want you to either draw or insert a picture. Of course, this is a wonderful opportunity for me to show off my beautiful artwork. So I'll draw you a picture of what I think a sperm looks like. Right, so we've got the head, we've got the tail, we've got the nucleus. Voila, it's a sperm. And then what an egg cell looks like is basically just a circle with a nucleus inside it as well. Beautiful drawings. Hopefully yours are better than mine. But let's keep moving forward to number 5. How are the cells that mitosis makes different from the cells that meiosis makes? So we know that mitosis makes 2 genetically identical daughter cells, but meiosis makes 4 genetically unique or different daughter cells. Okay, number 6, what does homologous mean? Well, this prefix homo means same. So in this case, homologous chromosomes means chromosomes that are the same size and contain the same types of genes in the same location. Okay, we see the word same a lot because those homologous chromosomes are basically identical, except for the fact that they contain different genes. But they contain the same type of genes, which is why they can pair up together. And we'll explain that further in just a second when we get to question number 8. Number 7, define crossing over in meiosis. So we briefly mentioned this yesterday. We talked about something called crossing over or recombination. And what this is basically a process where chromosomes, specifically homologous chromosomes, line up in pairs. And this allows them to exchange genetic information. They can basically switch genes between each other. This process makes something called recombinant chromosomes. This is why we call that process recombination, because we're basically recombining or switching up the genes. And this process leads to more genetic variation. Number 8, observe the 2 homologous chromosomes to the right undergoing crossing over and making recombinant chromosomes. Describe what is happening to the genetic material within the chromosomes during this process. So we talked about this yesterday, and if you haven't already, I actually want you to pause this video and tell me what's going on in this picture, because this wasn't really talked about in the video, so I want you to tell me, what do you see happening? Pay specific attention to this part of the process that I've highlighted right here. What is going on here in this recombination or crossing over? And press play when you're ready to go over it. All right, so what do we see happening? Well, we see that these 2 homologous chromosomes have paired up next to each other. Notice they are the same size, okay? They're able to pair up because they contain the same types of genes in the same location. But from the moment you are born, or from the moment you are conceived, okay, you have half of your genetic information from your dad and half of your genetic information from your mom. Okay, so in this case, we'll use the blue chromosome as one from our dad, and the red one is one from our mom. That genetic information stays with you until the day that you die, okay? But when it comes time for you to make your own gametes, these chromosomes are going to line up next to each other and switch up genes so that you pass on a combination of that genetic information, okay? We're creating 4 unique sex cells, right, that each contain different genetic information. And it's able to happen because of this process known as recombination or crossing over. This is where genes are exchanged to provide new combinations of genetic information. It leads to differences in DNA, which of course over time leads to genetic variation. So yesterday we talked about these 2 chromosomes line up next to each other, and it's like a fangirl moment. They're like, oh my gosh, I've heard so many good things about you. Like, it's you, I haven't seen you in so long. And then they're like, wait, can we shake hands? Is this happening? They shake hands, okay? But then they get a little bit too excited and they actually rip each other's arms off. But it's okay, because then they just basically trade arms and reseal that arm back onto themselves. But what we're left with is something known as a recombinant chromosome, where they've actually physically switched genes and switched up genetic information. Because then when those gametes are created later on, they're each passing on different combinations of DNA. All right, so then number 9, how does meiosis result in increased variety? Okay, we need to know that recombination, this process we just saw right here, ensures that each gamete contains a different set of DNA and is going to produce a unique set of genes in the following zygote. So both of my parents have brown hair. I have brown hair. My brother has blonde hair. Okay, how did that happen? It happened because of recombination, because different sets of genes were passed on to him and different sets of genes were passed on to me because of this process. And we'll talk more about this later on when we get to our genetics unit. We'll talk about dominant and recessive genes that also play a role in that. But for the most part, you guys need to know that recombination is what makes your siblings look different from you. Recombination is what gives us that genetic variation. All right, the last thing we're going to do today is talk about haploid and diploid chromosomes. So by now, hopefully we know that this word haploid, hap kind of looks like half, right? And that's because haploid cells contain half the total number of chromosomes. And we represent that as just the letter N. But diploid chromosomes we represent as 2N, and that's because they contain the total number of chromosomes. Okay. And in this chart, I've given you guys 5 different organisms. And I want you to figure out, based on the number that's provided, what is their haploid and diploid number. So you need to fill out all 4 rows of this chart. In the first row, we see just the overall haploid chromosome number. You need to figure out what it is for humans, cats, onions, rye, and chicken. You also need to tell me how many chromosomes are present in an egg, which is also a haploid number. I also want you to tell me how many chromosomes are present in the fertilized egg. So this is after the sperm and egg combine. It's going to be the diploid number, as well as how many chromosomes are present in the body cell chromosome number, okay? Again, that is a diploid cell, so you will use the diploid number there as well. I want you guys to pause this video, fill out this chart on your own. It might require a little bit of math, but press play when you're ready to review it. Okay, so first up, we've got the human. Hopefully by now you guys know the haploid and diploid number of humans. I feel like I've yelled it at you like a million times. But we are told that the body cell chromosome number, the diploid number of a body cell, is 46, which means that the fertilized egg chromosome, or the fertilized egg, is also going to be a diploid number. So the fertilized egg will also contain 46 chromosomes. But remember that the egg and sperm are haploid, which means they contain half of the total number. So the egg chromosome number is going to be 23, which also means that just the general haploid number of humans as well is 23. So now let's do the same thing, but for cats. So cats, when the egg is fertilized, it contains 38 chromosomes. That is the diploid number, which means that the diploid number for body cell chromosomes is also 38. But we also know that egg and sperm have to be haploid, so we're going to split that number in half, which means that the egg chromosome haploid number is 19. Same thing for just the overall haploid chromosome number is 19 as well. All right, but what about an onion? So an onion, we see that egg cells, the haploid number of onions is 16, which means that the overall haploid number as well is just 16. But when that egg is fertilized by a sperm, we now are dealing with a diploid cell, which means we have to multiply that haploid number by 2. So the diploid number for an onion is 32, which also means that there are 32 chromosomes in the body cell of an onion. Next up, we've got rye. The haploid chromosome number for rye is 7, which means that the haploid number of the egg chromosomes is also going to be 7. But when that haploid egg is fertilized by a sperm, we have to double that number to get the diploid number, which means the fertilized egg diploid number is 14, as well as the body cell chromosome number 14 as well. And last but not least, we've got the chicken. So there are 78 chromosomes in a fertilized chicken egg, which means that the diploid number of the body cell is also 78. But we have to divide that in half to get the haploid number. So there are 39 chromosomes in a haploid chicken egg, and just 39 haploid numbers for the chicken in general. That was not a sentence, but all right, guys, use this information to answer the 2 questions on your exit ticket. Let me know if you have any questions and have a wonderful day. I'll see you guys tomorrow.